Should be one of the easiest ones for you to find. First page. I was talking a little, open your Bible right to the center, you'll find yourself in Psalms. You either got to hang on right or hang on left. Just open the cover and flip through the maps. And Genesis 1, we're going to read verses 26 through 31. Then God said, let us make man in our image and our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. I can tell that the kids side of you remembered last week's sort of a homework that I gave last week. If you weren't here or you forgot, I asked everyone to come up with a definition of the word person. Define what it means to be a person. It's a complicated word to define because it has to include all people. You know, someone who's in a coma, someone who's brain dead, someone who has a debilitating illness, and someone who's severely handicapped. It also has to include a child who will be born in 5 minutes, as well as the one who was conceived 5 minutes ago. It can't include cats, dogs, pigs, or chickens. And I remember we had to do this. We started off by defining mammals. Mammals aren't people. And Brenda said this, we're not picking on Brenda, this is something that moves on 2 legs. Well, we move on 2 legs, but so do chickens, so do birds, and so do other things. And what about the fellow who's lost one of his legs, who was born without a leg? Well, there's all kind of, has to include everybody. And then there's something different about people than there are animals, and the answers are in Genesis. And you'll find that a lot of life's questions have their answers in the book of Genesis, which simply means beginnings. A lot of stuff happens in Genesis 1. I dare say more stuff happens in Genesis 1 than any other chapter of any other book in the Bible. Because God starts with nothing but himself. And by the time Genesis 1's done, we got us a whole universe in place. And a whole bunch of neat stuff happened. And eventually, you know, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, there wasn't much to the earth at first. We're told it was formless and empty. And darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Now, what's not clear is how long the earth was formless and empty at this time. How much time passed between when God made the heavens and the earth, and when we finally get to Genesis 1:3, God says those famous 4 words, let there be light. The first 4 words spoken by God that are recorded in Scripture. And God sees that the light is good. And he separates the light from the darkness, calling the light day and the darkness night. And it's in this process institutes the concept of time, the official first day. And over the course of this week, God makes everything. He gives form and definition to the earth. He sets up seasons. He brings all kinds of creatures and plants and an entire ecosystem into existence. And God sees that all of these things are good. It's good. And finally, on the 6th day, something different happens. God does something incredible. He says, let us make man in our image and our likeness. There's something curious happening here that makes people ask questions. And one of the questions that people like to ask here is, why is God referring to himself as us and our instead of me and my? God is one. And at this point, he's the only one. He's always the only one. But no one is helping him create, so why plural? And a lot of people get bogged down. And this question bogs down Bible studies all the time. And part of the problem here is that there are a lot of explanations that raise more questions than they answer. Do you ever get there where you think you got an explanation, and all of a sudden 15 more questions come up that make you question whether or not your explanation is right? And God is one. Even as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, he's still one. Now, the simplest and the best explanation for this is called the plural self-exaltation. And at the time Genesis was written down, Not at the time of creation. No one else was there at that point to write it down. There wasn't anybody sitting there keeping a journal. Day one, God did this. There wasn't anybody else there. But at the time Genesis was written down, when God gave these words to Moses and Moses wrote them down, in that day, it was very common for earthly kings to use plural when talking about themselves and never to illustrate just how important they were. And that's just what they did. It was self-exaltation, which for the most part, that's a bad thing to exalt yourself. Unless you're God, and you're not. He is. And so when God can exalt himself, we can't exalt ourselves, we exalt him. Well, God is using self-exaltation because the verb for create is singular. And you English teachers out there, who I know really have a hard time sometimes when I talk, because the grammar isn't always the best. But English teachers out there will tell you that the subject and verb have to agree from singular to plural. You wouldn't say we is. You would say we are. But if you said we is, you would do that to make a certain point. And God, so for God to say, let us make, is his way of saying that he is far above any and all earthly kings. It's also his way of saying that he alone is the creator. So don't get bent out of shape at God being plural. He is one. He is exalting himself. Let us make man in our image. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created, in verse 27 says that God created man in his own image. You see, whenever somebody else is talking about it, get back to the singular part. In the image of God he created them, and male and female he created them. This is what makes us different from the animals. We are created in the image of God. That's what makes you a person. That's the only definition of person that includes everybody. A person is one created in the image of God. In Latin, it's called the imago Dei, the image of God. You were made in the image of God. Volumes have been written on what this means. I'll keep it as simple as I can. In the ancient world, an image was believed to carry the essence of that which it represented. And since we're made in the image of God, that God's very essence is in us. That doesn't make us divine. That doesn't make us God. It simply means that we bear his image. When you have kids, they carry your image. They're not you. They don't look just like you. They aren't you, but they resemble you in many ways. They have traits that are just like you. How many times have you heard somebody say, I hope you have a kid that acts just like you? Ever heard somebody say that to somebody? It was certainly. And so, but you meet somebody and you're like, who's so-and-so's kid? Because there's a resemblance, there's the image, it's there. So when somebody sees us, hey, you're God's kid, because we carry his image. There's things about God, his image, that have been imparted to us through creation. So you're created in the image of God. That makes you special. That's what makes human life so precious and why it grieves God. And it should grieve all of us to see any life taken frivolously. That's why we are unashamedly pro-life. All human life is made in the image of God, regardless of the circumstances that brought that life into existence. Doesn't matter how it happened. They're made in the image of God. It's a person from conception through eternity. And when a large chunk of society decides that God doesn't matter anymore, then people become no different than cars. So if you have to jump one car and take parts off to make another one run right, that's okay. But when you start treating people, especially babies, like junk cars, that's a real problem. No one is disposable because they're made in the image of God. They carry the image of God. How dare we decide that somebody doesn't need to enter the world? God told his people to be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living thing on the ground. God gave us dominion over the animals. He gave us stuff to eat. He gave them stuff to eat. People were the centerpiece of God's creation. You notice the whole way through, it was good. It was good. It was good. As soon as God made us, it was very good. It's all of a sudden, it's complete. It's complete. We carry his image. Nothing else does that. So that's why when you have a beehive, you don't really burst into tears when you spray the beehive down with spray and they all die. Because if you swat a fly or step on an ant or run over a bunny, you may get a little bit sad about the bunny because bunnies are cute. But you don't bat an eye trying to kill your mosquitoes, do you? Because they're not made in the image of God. They don't matter. And so there's a growing movement to try to save the earth, right? By people who are telling us that we humans are the problem. And we need to have a smaller role in the world and give it back to the animals, give it back to nature. I actually saw a lady on TV the other night that made me sit. I was sitting going like, "You got to be kidding! You have to pay somebody to say something that ridiculous because nobody really believes that garbage." But she did. She's leading a movement to try to stop people from having kids because there's too many people. We need to cut back on the population of the earth. She's leading a movement. She's decided not to have any kids. Which years I can figure that's not a bad thing. Stop making more people like you. You know. In her case, most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The problem isn't people, per se. The problem is sin. When the world embraces sin, the solution isn't to eliminate the people, it's to eliminate the sin. We don't eliminate sin by eliminating people, do you? I mean, look how many people have been eliminated over the years. Does it eliminate the problem? Of course not. God told us to fill this place and subdue it. We have dominion over everything on the earth, not the other way around. We need to take care of what God's given us, but we don't worship it, do we? We don't worship that stuff. It's fun to look at. I mean, our garden is beautiful today. We don't worship it. We can worship in it. We worship God in it, but we don't worship that. We worship and serve the Creator, the one who made us in His image. Our calling is never to destroy that image. Our calling is to take care of that another day. Our calling is to share the gospel of salvation with those who don't know Jesus, because even though they're created in His image, they don't know Him. But it's that image that they're created in Him that gives them the ability to be like, yeah, there's something deep within you that knows that you need to worship something other than yourself. You need to be born again, become alive in Christ, because we have to make Him known to those who don't know Him. We are the Imago Dei, we're the image of God. We are His standard bearers. And when we can live into that, then we can show the world what it means to be made in the image of God. And as we come for communion this morning, we come bearing the image of God. Spend some time at the altar this morning with God. And ask yourself how you are taking care of His image in the world. We tell our kids, whenever you go, you represent yourself, you represent the people who know you. You don't embarrass yourself, don't embarrass the rest of us, right? We represent God. No, we carry His image. Let's not embarrass Him. Let's represent Him the way He is worthy of being represented, and that is through worship. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you, Lord, for creating us in your image. We pray, Lord, that you would renew your image, restore your image, Lord, as Lord, sin has radically messed up your creation. We are still made in your image. And you say, as we live and move and have our being, Lord, as we prepare, Lord, our hearts, Lord, for the speaker coming next week on Sunday, Lord. Coming, Lord, for renewal services, Lord, you would take those two little letters, R-E, and renew and refresh and renew your image in us. We need to celebrate your life, what needs to be alive and alive, and you fill us with your spirit to come, Lord, to receive, Lord, your supper. Lord, and remind us again that we carry your image, Lord, out in this world who needs to know nothing but you. Lord, it's in your name we pray. Amen.